Hello all of you beautiful people, Jules here for WhatCulture.com, and you know what, when it comes to comic books, everyone seems to love to ask the question of what would happen if Superman were to turn evil. And while that has been a fun idea to explore and many comic lines have done so, less people are talking about what would happen if Batman would turn evil, mainly because of the fact that he seems to live in the morally dubious grey area of the spectrum. But still, there have been some versions that have twisted and turned the knife so much they've become as evil as some of the villains that he's tried to take down. So let's take a look at them today. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are the 10 most evil versions of Batman. Number 10, Azrael. After Bane breaks Batman's back, Azrael, the Bat fandom's problematic favourite before Jason Todd dug himself out of the grave to discover his leather fetish, decides to take over the mantle until Bruce is feeling better. Now, since we're talking about a broken back here, that recovery takes a fair old while, even with the best medical care that Bruce can afford. So Azrael gets plenty of time in the cape and cowl to go absolutely flippin' crazy with power, even redesigning the suit into a 90s monstrosity comprised of as many pointy edges as possible. Azrael does everything that Batman considers an absolute no-no whilst in the suit. He maims, he tortures, he rips apart every criminal he comes across, even the ones only guilty of minor offences. In short, Azrael becomes the perfect nightmare of what Batman's detractors say he is, even if he did manage to wrest control of Gotham away from Bruce. Number 9, Dawnbreaker Batman. Now frankly, this list wouldn't even be half as long without Dark Knight's Metal, which introduced the Dark Multiverse, a classification given to alternate realities that represent the absolute worst case scenarios. Universes that simply have no future because things really have just gone that wrong. Now this event's sole reason for existence seemed to have been balancing the scales on how many evil versions of Superman there were by giving us arguably too many versions of evil Batman. This version of Bruce Wayne, the Dawnbreaker, completely shut down emotionally the moment that his parents died, losing all emotion, including fear, which of course attracted the Green Lantern Corps to him. And it comes as no surprise whatsoever that giving a straight-up sociopath all the power in the universe probably wasn't the smartest move on the behalf of the Guardians. Bruce used his power to track down Joe Chill, even overriding the Lantern Ring with his own evil willpower to make it his own, killing Chill in the process. When the Corps tried to take the ring away, he killed all of them too, ascending into a higher being made of malice and hatred that became known as the Dawnbreaker. Number 8, Devastator Batman. So a few years ago, the Superman comics introduced to us the Doomsday Virus. It was basically an explanation as to why this big bony villain keeps on coming back no matter how many times Superman punches him into space. It does exactly what it says on the tin. It turns you into Doomsday, and it even got Superman for a hot minute there. But in Dark Knight's Metal, we're presented with a fascinating scenario. What if it got Batman instead? When Superman of Earth -1 completely loses his marbles and goes on a killing spree, Batman, out of pure desperation, gives one final go at stopping him by ingesting the last remaining vial of the Doomsday Virus. This permanently transforms him into the Devastator, a wicked hybrid of Batman and Doomsday that easily trounces the insane Superman. However, it's called the Doomsday Virus for a reason, so it's not long before everyone else is infected with the virus too. Oh, and to top it all off, the virus drives you irreparably insane. There's barely anything left of Bruce by the time that we meet him in the Dark Knight's Metal event. What we do see is an utter rage machine. And speaking of machines, number 7, the Murder Machine. Now many like to accuse Bruce of being robotic in personality and behaviour, but as the Murder Machine showcases, a robot Batman would actually be way worse than anyone could have predicted. When Alfred is murdered by Batman's rogue gallery, he and Cyborg construct an AI resembling Alfred's personality and mannerisms to both perform the duties that Alfred used to, as well as help Bruce to cope with the loss of his surrogate father. However, the Alfred Protocol, which was programmed to help Bruce however it felt was most efficient, decided to first murder everyone in Arkham Asylum and then take over Bruce's mind when the AI decided that Bruce was as much a danger to himself as anyone else. His body, now under the control of the Alfred Protocol, saw Bruce being subjected to a brutal surgical removal of everything the AI deemed weak, such as things like his frail human body and any emotions that would make him hesitate in his quest. When the Justice League protested, the Murder Machine, as it took to calling itself, proceeded to brutally massacre them. Number 6, Batman the Merciless. DC and Marvel make having every god of every religion exist simultaneously seem way more fun than it probably actually ever would be. Seems to me that such a setup would be bound to explode in everyone's collected faces at some point or another, and Batman the Merciless would probably agree with me on that one. On this Batman's Earth, Ares, the god of war, has finally gone off the deep end and overthrown the Greek gods and turned his warmongering on Earth, using a specially made helmet that increases his powers 100-fold. Naturally, Batman and Wonder Woman are the last ones standing, just barely managing to get the helmet off of Ares. And if this wasn't the Dark Multiverse, that would be the end of things, but Bruce, upon holding the helmet, feels the power within it and puts it on for himself, arrogantly believing that he would be able to control it rather than the other way around. Shock of all shocks, he wasn't, and he brutally murders Diana when she tries to get it off of him next. Also in this reality, Bruce and Diana were lovers, making it much more of a dick move on Bruce's part. Number 5. The Red Death. This incarnation of Batman is probably the scummiest of Barbatos' Dark Knights, next to the entry that you damn know well is coming in a bit. This version of Bruce, after losing everyone that he cared about in his war on crime, decided that he could make a lot more use out of the Speed Force than that wimp Barry Allen ever could, and so stole the Flash's cosmic treadmill, duct-taped it to his Batmobile, tied Barry to the Batmobile's hood, and drove them both into the Speed Force, fusing the two together into a single being known as the Red Death. This Batman not only betrayed his best friend, taking away his free will and forcibly fusing their bodies together against his will, but then proceeded to use the Flash's powers in a way that goes against everything that he believes in. Oh, and while all of this is going on, Barry is still alive, screaming into Bruce's mind in a vain attempt to get him to bloody stop. Number 4. Vampire Batman. Yes, believe it or not, there were evil or at least darker versions of Batman before Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo worked their headbanging heavy metal magic. One of the most famous of these earlier examples is the Elseworlds Batman and Dracula trilogy. In it, Batman takes on the Prince of Darkness and, though triumphant, ends up being turned into a vampire himself. He then spends the rest of the trilogy slowly losing himself to the vampiric hunger. In the process, Batman ends up supernaturally screwing over just about everybody in his life, sometimes just by messing with their lives with his mere vampiric presence, other times, in the case of James Gordon and most of his rogues gallery, by straight up killing them. While this Batman isn't full on evil due to him trying as hard as possible to avoid giving in to the hunger, a lot of good folks still die because of his actions due to his very nature as a vampire, so it definitely counts here. Number 3. Leatherwing. For those not in the know, say hello to Leatherwing, otherwise known as Nazi Batman. Now, we don't actually know a whole lot about him, seeing as he hasn't appeared that many times. All that we do know is that the Earth that he hails from, Earth 10, is the version of Earth where the Nazis won World War II, and the Justice League are the Axis Power's personal enforcers, so it's not hard to see him as not being a very cool guy from that setup alone. Like all Nazis, Leatherwing is bottomlessly racist, untrustworthy, nowhere near as intelligent as he believes himself to be, ruthless, and evil to his very core. Number 2. Owlman. Now, there have been lots of versions of Owlman in the many decades since this character has been a thing, but the Earth-3 interpretation of him remains the best. In it, Owlman is Thomas Wayne Jr., the eldest son of Thomas and Martha Wayne, and indeed Bruce's older brother. When Thomas decided as a boy that his parents weren't using their vast wealth quite the way that he would have done, he had them killed at the hands of a much more evil Alfred. When young Bruce, the only member of the Wayne family that Thomas genuinely loved, didn't agree with the plan, Thomas killed him himself. Thomas would later become the villainous Owlman to secure his tyrannical hold on Gotham City in the places that his predatory capitalism couldn't reach. Owlman is an egomaniacal, nihilistic psychopath who only thinks of his own gain and has zero qualms about torturing, maiming, and murdering whoever he has to in order to get what he wants. So yeah, no surprises on this list. And number 1, the Batman who laughs. Of course it's this jerk face. I mean, don't act like you're shocked. The leader of Barbatos' Dark Knights, the Batman who laughs has become something of an icon in and of himself, being the new super baddie that DC can whip out whenever they feel like it. But in the original Dark Knights metal event, he was every bit as terrifying as fans say he was. Now, this version of Batman is probably the most nightmarish in the entire Dark Knights lineup, and there is some steep-ass competition here. When the Joker tore Gotham apart and killed Commissioner Gordon, amongst many others, Batman finally murdered the clown by breaking his neck. However, that that was exactly what the Joker wanted, as upon his death, a spray of Joker's toxin shot right into Batman's face. This, of course, not only drove him utterly insane, but it drove him Joker levels of insane, resulting in a Batman who has the morals of the Joker, that is to say none whatsoever, and the training and intellect of Batman. So yeah, the Justice League doesn't last very long after this. The Batman who laughs is the perfect nightmare for Bruce Wayne. Literally everything he is afraid of becoming embodied in one sick, depraved madman. How could any other Batman possibly be more evil? And there we go, my friends. Those were the 10 most evil versions of Batman. I hope that you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below. As always, I've been Jules. You can go follow me over on Twitter at RetroJ with a 0, or you can swing by Live and Let's Dice over on Twitch, where I'm doing all of my streaming outside of work, and it'd be great to see you over there. But before I go, I just want to say one thing. I hope that you are treating yourself well, both mentally and physically. Treat yourself with some love, because you deserve it, my friend. Yes, you do. And do not let anything or anyone else tell you otherwise. You are not the villain in your own story. You are the hero, my friend, and I just want you to live a healthy and happier life. Now go out there and absolutely smash it. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.